A queen disappeared from public life for months and returned more powerful than ever before. Her absence made the entire court desperate to see her and win her favor again. Presence can become boring, but absence creates a hunger that nothing else can satisfy completely. The next 5 laws teach the delicate balance between visibility, mystery, and strategic social positioning. These principles have guided kings, diplomats, and power brokers for thousands of years of history. Law 16. Use absence to increase respect and honor. Law 16 reveals a counterintuitive truth about human attention and the value of scarcity always. Use absence to increase respect and honor because too much presence cheapens your worth dramatically. The more people see you, the more common and ordinary you become in their minds. Familiarity breeds contempt, and constant availability makes others take you completely for granted eventually. Napoleon Bonaparte understood the power of strategic absence throughout his remarkable military and political career. After his Egyptian campaign, Napoleon returned to France as a mysterious hero wrapped in legend. He had been gone long enough for people to forget his failures and remember only victories. The distance created romance around his name that constant presence would have destroyed very quickly. When he appeared in Paris, crowds went wild because they had been starving for him. His absence had transformed him from a general into something closer to a living god. Cleopatra used the same principle to maintain her power over the mighty Roman general Mark Antony. She would disappear for weeks at a time, leaving Antony desperate and obsessed with finding her. When she returned, Antony would give her anything she wanted just to keep her near. Her strategic withdrawals kept him emotionally dependent on her for years until their tragic end. A lover who is always available loses their romantic power almost immediately in any relationship. The one who occasionally withdraws becomes more desirable because scarcity increases perceived value in everything. This law applies to careers just as much as it applies to personal romantic relationships today. Employees who are always visible and always available often get taken for granted by their bosses. The consultant who is hard to book commands higher fees than the one always waiting around. Movie stars who appear in too many films see their box office appeal decline rapidly over time. Stars who choose projects carefully and remain somewhat mysterious maintain their value for many decades. The key is timing your absence perfectly so people miss you without completely forgetting you. Stay away too long and people find replacements for you in their lives and minds. Return too quickly and the absence loses its power to refresh your image and reputation. Create a pattern of withdrawal and return that keeps people always slightly hungry for more. Your value increases when the supply of your presence decreases in any social or professional market. Law 17. Keep others in suspended terror. Cultivate an air of unpredictability. Law 17 teaches that predictability makes you vulnerable to manipulation by everyone around you constantly. Keep others in suspended terror by cultivating an air of unpredictability in your actions always. Humans are pattern-seeking creatures who feel comfortable when they can predict what happens next easily. When you become predictable, others can plan against you and prepare defenses for your moves. The unpredictable person keeps everyone off balance and unable to mount effective opposition or resistance. Ivan the Terrible ruled Russia with a reign of calculated and strategic unpredictability for decades. One day he would shower a noble with gifts, praise, and important positions of honor. The next day he might order that same noble executed for no apparent reason whatsoever. No one in his court ever felt safe because the rules kept changing without warning. This constant terror kept the Russian nobility too frightened to ever organize against the Tsar effectively. They spent all their energy trying to read his mood instead of plotting against him. Ivan's unpredictability was not madness, but a carefully cultivated tool for maintaining absolute political control. Bobby Fischer became the greatest chess player in the world, partly through psychological unpredictability tactics. He would show up late to matches, complain about lighting, and demand last-minute rule changes. Opponents never knew what Fischer would do next, and this uncertainty destroyed their concentration completely. They were playing chess against Fischer while also trying to manage his constant unpredictable behavior. Fischer won the world championship partly because his opponents were mentally exhausted before games even started. In business negotiations, the unpredictable party often gains advantages over the more predictable and stable one. If your opponent knows exactly what you will accept, they will offer exactly that amount. If they cannot predict your reactions, they must offer more to ensure the deal closes. President Richard Nixon cultivated a reputation for unpredictability in dealing with foreign enemies during his administration. He wanted communist leaders to believe he might do anything, including using nuclear weapons if pushed. This madman theory kept adversaries cautious because they could not calculate his responses with confidence. Being the unpredictable can backfire if people stop trusting you enough to deal with you. The goal is controlled unpredictability, where people respect your power without thinking you are completely insane. Occasionally do something completely unexpected to remind everyone that they cannot take you for granted ever. Keep your patterns varied enough that no one can write a reliable manual for managing you. Law 18. Do not build fortresses to protect yourself. Isolation is dangerous. Law 18 warns against the natural instinct to hide away when you feel threatened by enemies. Do not build fortresses to protect yourself because isolation is far more dangerous than exposure. Walls that keep enemies out also keep critical information and allies from reaching you in time. The isolated person loses touch with reality and becomes paranoid, seeing threats that do not exist. Louis XIV understood this law perfectly and designed Versailles to keep potential enemies close to him. He forced all the major nobles of France to live at his palace under his watch. The nobles thought they were enjoying royal luxury, but they were actually prisoners in gilded cages. Louis could monitor their conversations, their alliances, and their moods every single day personally. Any conspiracy would have to form right under the king's nose, making plots almost impossible. The nobles who stayed on their rural estates away from court lost all political influence gradually. They were forgotten, while those at Versailles remained close to the source of all power. Qin Shi Huangdi was the first emperor of unified China and an extremely paranoid ruler. He built massive walls and changed his sleeping location every night to avoid assassination attempts. He isolated himself so completely that he lost touch with what was happening in his empire. Rebellions grew in distant provinces while the emperor hid behind his walls knowing nothing about them. His dynasty collapsed shortly after his death because isolation had blinded him to real threats completely. Howard Hughes became one of the richest men in America through aviation and film industries. In his later years, Hughes became increasingly paranoid and retreated into total isolation from everyone. He locked himself in hotel rooms, saw almost no one, and relied on a tiny circle. This isolation allowed his advisors to manipulate him and steal from him without any accountability. Hughes died alone and confused, his empire being picked apart by people he never monitored properly. The connected person has eyes and ears everywhere through their network of friends and allies. They hear about threats early and can respond before small problems become large disasters around them. Isolation feels safe, but actually increases your vulnerability by cutting off your sources of intelligence. Stay mobile, stay connected, and keep your circle of contacts wide enough to see everything clearly. The fortress mentality is a trap that has destroyed countless powerful people throughout all of history. Law 19. Know who you're dealing with. Do not offend the wrong person. Law 19 teaches that not all people react the same way to being challenged or insulted. Know who you are dealing with and never offend the wrong person by accident or arrogance. Some people will forgive offenses quickly and move on without holding any grudge against you. Others will wait for years, planning their revenge carefully until the perfect moment finally arrives. Mistaking the second type for the first type can destroy your entire life very quickly. Muhammad Ali once mocked Joe Frazier relentlessly in the lead-up to their famous boxing matches. Ali called Frazier ugly, stupid, and an Uncle Tom in front of the entire world. The insults were meant to be entertaining promotion, but Frazier took them deeply and personally inside. Frazier never forgave Ali and carried that hatred with him until the day he died. He refused reconciliation attempts and spoke bitterly about Ali for decades. After their careers ended, Ali underestimated how deeply his words would wound a proud man like Joe Frazier permanently. The offense cost Ali a friendship and created an enemy who never stopped hating him. Some people are wolves in sheep's clothing, appearing weak but possessing terrible capacity for revenge later. The ancient Chinese strategist Sun Tzu warned against pushing enemies into corners where they have nothing. A desperate enemy with nothing left to lose becomes the most dangerous enemy you can face. They will take risks and make sacrifices that a comfortable enemy would never consider at all. Pietro di Vinciolo was a Venetian nobleman who publicly insulted a young man of lower social standing. The young man seemed powerless and unable to respond to the humiliation from the wealthy noble. But 20 years later, the young man had risen to become a powerful government official himself. He destroyed Pietro's family completely, taking their property and ruining their reputation throughout Venice systematically. Pietro had forgotten the insult decades ago, but his victim remembered every single detail perfectly. Before you offend anyone, consider what they might become in 5, 10, or 20 years. The powerless today might hold power tomorrow, and memories of humiliation last extremely long in people. Also recognize that some people are simply too dangerous to offend, regardless of the potential reward. The unstable person might react with immediate violence that no strategic calculation can predict or prevent. Read people carefully before engaging with them, and adjust your approach based on what you discover. Some battles are simply not worth fighting because the potential enemy is too vengeful to provoke. Choose your conflicts wisely and never make enemies carelessly, without understanding the risks involved first completely. Law 20. Do not commit to anyone. Law 20 teaches the power of remaining independent and keeping all your options permanently open always. Do not commit to anyone fully because commitment reduces your options and limits your future freedom. The uncommitted person can play all sides and benefit from conflicts between more committed parties easily. Queen Elizabeth I of England ruled for 45 years using non-commitment as her primary strategy. She was pressured constantly to marry and form an alliance with one European power or another. Spain, France, and Austria all sent suitors hoping to win England through marriage to the Queen. Elizabeth entertained all proposals seriously, but never actually committed to marrying any of the suitors completely. She kept each nation hoping they might win her hand, and therefore stayed friendly with England. The moment she married, England would have gained one ally, but made enemies of all others. By remaining single, Elizabeth kept everyone courting her and maintained maximum diplomatic flexibility for decades successfully. Her non-commitment was not weakness, but rather the source of her remarkable political power and survival. Alcibiades was an Athenian general who served Athens, Sparta, and Persia at different points in history. He committed fully to no one and switched sides whenever the advantage shifted in another direction. Some called him a traitor, but he survived and thrived while more loyal men died forgotten. His flexibility allowed him to escape destruction that caught those who committed too deeply to causes. In business, the person who keeps their options open always has more leverage in negotiations naturally. The employee who might leave for another company gets more respect than the one clearly staying. The investor who might fund other startups gets better terms than the one obviously committed already. Commitment signals that you need the other party more than they need you in deals. Non-commitment signals strength and abundance, suggesting many other opportunities are waiting for you elsewhere constantly. This does not mean being disloyal or betraying people who have treated you well and fairly. It means maintaining your independence so that loyalty becomes your choice, rather than your necessity always. The committed person becomes predictable, and predictability reduces your power in every negotiation and relationship dramatically. Keep people uncertain about your true loyalties and let them work to keep your favor. The one being courted has power over the one doing the courting in every single situation. Position yourself as the prize that everyone wants to win, rather than the pursuer seeking acceptance. These 5 laws reveal the subtle dynamics of presence, predictability, isolation, judgment, and commitment strategically. They teach that absence can increase value, while too much presence destroys mystery and respect. They show that unpredictability keeps enemies off balance, while predictability invites manipulation and calculated attacks constantly. They warn that isolation feels safe, but actually increases vulnerability by cutting off crucial information. They demonstrate that some people should never be offended because their revenge will be terrible. They prove that commitment reduces options while strategic independence preserves power and negotiates strength effectively. These patterns repeat throughout history because human nature remains constant across all cultures and centuries. The powerful understand these laws and use them while the powerless remain confused and victimized. Learning these principles helps you recognize manipulation and protect yourself from those who use them. The next 5 laws continue revealing the hidden rules that govern all power dynamics everywhere.